The development of nuclear weapons is arguably one of humanity's most destructive and sinister achievements. Thousands of these atomic bombs have been detonated in the years since their invention, and there is no denying the terrifying and devastating power that they have. Indeed, it has long been recognized that nuclear weapons are one of the few ways in which humanity could potentially destroy itself and the entire planet. The question which inevitably follows, therefore, is could nuclear weapons be somehow used in space? What would the purpose be for this, and most importantly, the aftermath? More specifically, what would happen if we nuked the moon? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're intrigued by thought explorations and hypothetical musings such as this. From a common sense perspective, there is absolutely no benefit in using nuclear weapons in any context, whether that is on Earth or on the moon. The risks and dangers far outweigh the benefits and advantages which could be derived from this. The idea of nuking the moon sounds ridiculous as it is. It is probably unsettling to learn, therefore, that there have been moments in history where humans have seriously considered involving the moon in the development, testing, and launching of nuclear weapons. It was during the Cold War that the nuclear arms race happened, which was essentially an arms race competition between the global superpowers of that period and their allies. The general consensus was that the winner would be the one who could demonstrate that they had the most powerful military on the planet. In the midst of this race, various scientists and strategists seriously considered the possibility of militarizing the moon. At that point, a nation's ability to nuke the moon would have proven their nuclear capabilities in the most shocking way possible. In the 1950s, United States Air Force commissioned a study in order to investigate this question. When the US had factored a relatively small warhead into their plans, this study calculated the impact of a massive 100 megaton bomb. To place the sheer size of the bomb into perspective, it is important to keep in mind that the largest nuclear weapon ever detonated in history was the 50 megaton Tsar bomber by the Soviets. Even though the Tsar bomber was only half the size of the megaton bomb which was proposed in the study, the flash could have been seen by onlookers more than 500 miles away. The mushroom cloud which was produced quite literally reached the edges of space. This real-life anecdote makes the thought of the moon being nuked by a bomb double that size all the more terrifying. Of course, considering the mass, density and composition of the moon and its atmosphere, it is likely that the aftermath of a nuclear detonation on the moon would be very different to what happens on Earth. Regardless, such a powerful explosion will still be a source of mass destruction and devastation, even if the consequences are different. For example, the moon doesn't have any air to cushion the blast as it radiates outwards. At least on our own little blue ball floating through space, the density and composition of the air ensures that the true impact of the radiation and heat which is emitted by the bomb is lessened significantly. Since the moon doesn't have any air at all, the resulting explosion would be larger than anything which could ever happen on Earth. What's more, we wouldn't be able to see an actual blast or feel the thermal radiation because there is no air which can be ignited or heated. An atomic detonation on the moon would also emit radiation at an extremely high frequency, and with nothing to obstruct its path, it will continue traveling outwards as far as the initial momentum of the blast will allow. This is a critical observation because it has substantial implications for anyone or anything which is around the moon as well. For example, any astronauts who happen to be within several miles of the moon's radius would be killed almost immediately. Any individuals in orbit around the moon could also find themselves in mortal danger because anyone who is close enough to observe the explosion would be exposed to fatal amounts of radiation. Another consequence of this nuclear blast would be an intense moonquake because the moon's mass is a fraction of the Earth's, and it would be much more susceptible to the blast's shockwaves. The blast would also carve a crater into the surface of the moon, throwing debris in every direction. And since the moon doesn't really have an atmosphere, the debris, rocks and dust would be launched into space. The majority of it would disappear into the vacuum of the universe, whilst some would rain down onto Earth. By the time they would make impact, however, they would be little more than small rocks which are barely noticed upon impact. Overall, even a 100 megaton bomb isn't going to be sufficient to knock the moon out of orbit, threaten the existence of humanity, or destroy Earth. In order to affect the moon's orbit, the power and energy which is required would be the equivalent of 10 trillion megatons. And for better or worse, there is no chance of this happening in reality, at least not anytime soon. A force of this magnitude would displace the moon, and in the process wreak havoc on Earth by changing the tides, killing all marine life, exposing the planet to meteors as well as causing weather systems to break down and seasonal changes to come to an end. Thankfully, this is purely theoretical. The possibility of developing and then detonating a bomb even half that size is practically impossible. We hope that you found this video as fascinating as we did, and if that is the case, then please like, share and subscribe to this channel for so much more.